Hi, I'm Joel Persinger from Practical Defense Systems. Thank you for joining me on Rumble. That's where we're hanging out now. Our primary channel is now going to be on Rumble. We'll also put you up there on YouTube, but we'll be working mostly on Rumble and X. So if you're not subscribed there, please do so. The link is in the description. Subscribe to GunGuyTV while you're at it. I've talked about less lethal a little bit, quite a few times recently. Most notably, we talked about the Byrna. I did a couple of videos on that. I'm still kind of dubious on that one, but you can watch the videos if you want. They're on the channel. I own one. It works really well. I don't have any problems with it. I'm just trying to figure out the form factor and, you know, the other things I mentioned in the video. I won't go down that rat hole here. What I'm going to talk about today is the Taser. Now, this happens to be a Taser brand model, and Taser is actually a brand name. So it's kind of like Kleenex. Every time you blow your nose on something, you think it's a Kleenex. It's not. Sometimes it is. Most times it's probably not. But since they were the ones that started the whole thing, we think about it as a Kleenex or Band-Aid for that matter. It's like all bandages are a Band-Aid. No, Band-Aid is a brand. Well, Taser is a brand. And there is another company called Phaser, a competing company that makes very similar products. In fact, frankly, if you don't know the difference, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And they actually use the same cartridges. And they do pretty much the same thing. And certain police departments use one as opposed to the other. Certain countries use one as opposed to the other. As far as I know, they both work very, very well. Now, I don't have a law enforcement version of either of those, but I will show you a picture of each one. This is the Taser law enforcement version, the most current one, and this is the Phaser law enforcement version, the most current one. And so you can tell that they look very, very similar. Now, the civilian model that Taser currently sells is called the Taser Pulse, and that's this thing. And then Phaser has a civilian model, and I forgot what they call it. I think it's the Phaser Dragon or something like that, but here's a picture of it. It looks like the old Phaser from Star Trek, and it looks very similar to the civilian model that Taser sold at one time called the Taser C2. I assume that C being for civilian. So let's talk about tasers. Okay, so functionally, if I can show you this thing, functionally, there's a few simple things about it. One is you got to turn it on. Now, these come with a battery already in them, and you can't change the battery. It's good for, I don't know how many thousands of zaps, but at some point the battery will die or get low, and then the indicator will tell you that. So when you turn it on, if you look here, right back here, when I flip on the switch, this is the on-off switch, kind of reminds you of a safety on a firearm. If I turn it up, you can see that the unit comes on and it's green. Well, it'll change color as the battery starts to die. And then you can also see that the red indicator is there, so that's telling you that you can fire it at any time you want. And it also has a light and a laser. So it's got a little laser sight and it's got a weapon light, little LED in there. Now, the LED's reasonably bright, but as you can see, as I pointed at the cabinet here, you know, it's okay. It's not great. There's the laser. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. But there's the laser a little bit. I'm not putting my hand in front of it. That just always makes me nervous, even though this thing is not loaded. Now I'm going to turn it back off again, whoops, and show you the end where the cartridge goes. This is a great big gaping hole where the cartridge goes. And the cartridges, when you get them, come in this neat little kind of weird package. I already took this one out. You just snap them out. And the probes and the wire launch out of these little doors. There's a door on the right and a door on the left here. And the doors fly off, and out come the probes and the little wires. And you've probably seen this on YouTube 1,000 times. Now, you'll notice on this cartridge there is a contact, electrical contact here, and an electrical contact here, and there's a button here and a button here. So when you insert the cartridge, you insert it so that the contacts will hit on the unit. So you can see a contact here and a contact here. It doesn't matter which way it goes, they're going to hit. Here's a big deal. When you load a Taser, make sure that you're holding the cartridge this way, not this way, because if you hit those contacts just right, or you don't realize you've got the unit on, you're going to launch those probes into your hand. That's been done by a whole lot of people. Fortunately, I have never done it, and you don't want to do it. Okay, so you want to load it this way, like this, okay, rather than doing it this way. So you got to be careful when you load it. And you can take the cartridge out by pushing either button, pushing the buttons on either side, and it'll pop right out. I'm not going to load it for you because I'm not going to fire it today. You've seen a million videos on tasers. So let's talk about what makes a taser or a phaser work the way it does as opposed to a stun gun. A stun gun, which you can use this as a stun gun. There's no cartridge in it, okay? No cartridge in it, but if I press the trigger, it will stun for 30 seconds or until I turn the unit off. Wow, that's pretty loud, isn't it? Okay, so you can use it for what's called a drive stun. You can poke it up against somebody and you can use it as a stun gun. That's called a drive stun because you're driving it into them and you're pressing the trigger. So you can use a taser or a phaser for that. A stun gun that you might get on, I don't know, Amazon or whatever, or at your local convenience store or what have you, that's not going to launch probes. That's just two contacts that are maybe an inch or two apart and a lot of voltage. No amps really, but a lot of voltage. And I'm not going to get into amperage and voltage and current and pressure and all that kind of stuff. That you want that, take the class I'm putting together. That'll be on the Practical Defense Systems website for security guards and civilians. This is just basic stuff here, okay? But what you can do is you can use this as a stun gun if you want to. So let's say, for example, you shot the probes at somebody and you didn't get a good deployment, but they're coming at you. You can press this into them, press the trigger. You can take the probes out. You can pop this out and just use it as a stun gun if you need to. But here's the problem with stun guns, the positive and negative. Stun guns hurt. That's it. They're pain compliance. It's not like in the movies or television when they take the stun gun and push it up against the guy's neck and he passes out for an hour. That's Hollywood. And I always try to tell students that Hollywood is the entertainment industry. It's not the education industry. So we shouldn't learn things about self-defense from Hollywood because they're not trying to teach us anything. They're just trying to make us pay for the movie or pay for the streaming service or whatever by having a good time. So it's an educational thing. It's an entertainment thing rather, not an educational thing. So we got to keep that straight. So these, when you dry stun or drive stun like that, that's just pain compliance. It just hurts. That's it. So if you have a highly motivated person or somebody that's high as a kite, they don't feel the pain, or somebody that maybe they're drunk or they whatever, they're going to work right through that, and they don't really care. So it's I've seen a lot of people tried to be stopped with those things. They'll just keep coming. They hurt a lot, and if the pain is sufficient, that's fine. The reason why a taser or a phaser or something that launches probes works differently is because you get something called neuromuscular incapacitation. It's because of the design of the pulse, because it's a pulsating rhythm that are in these things, the way the electricity pulses, but it's also a function of how far the probes are apart. If the probes are hit and they're more than 4 inches or more apart, then what happens is it locks up your ability to control your muscles. Basically, the device overrides your mental impulses to move your muscles, and that's why you see people lock up. And that's why you get, I'll show you a little clip here, that's why you get what I call the taser flop.
Drop the knife now.
Get on the ground! Okay. Go around!
HQ Juliet 144, one tased.
Now a lot of those people flopped because they all got neuromuscular incapacitation. That's why they seize up and they fall down. And sometimes they fall down, they get really seriously hurt because they're not under control. They're under control of the taser, not themselves. They can't break their fall, they just fall. And so if they have a head trauma or something like that, that's a big problem. And there have been instances where people have been killed because they were tased in an inopportune place. One police officer somewhere in the country tased a young man as he was running out into the highway, fell on the highway, got run over by a car, and he was killed. Things like that happen, so you have to be mindful of where you would use it. The other thing about this is, although it locks people up, it only does it as long as the current is running. The minute the current stops running, if you've ever been tased, the minute the current stops running, you're 100% again. Now you might be a little kind of out of it or phased a little bit by the fact that you just went through the pain of being tased, but it's no longer affecting you physiologically, just mentally. You can pop right up and go again. One more thing, you gotta get good probes launched, both probes. In other words, you have to have a good deployment of both probes. They've got to be 4 inches or more apart, and they both have to hit. If you have one that didn't hit, well, guess what? That's a problem. Now all you have is pain compliance. It's going to hurt, but it's not going to lock them up. If you have one that got stuck and hung up in the clothing, or you got one, you know, that the individual knew to wave their arms to make it go away. I'll show you an example of that here in a minute, where they're waving their arms because that's what they know. They know you're going to tase them, so they start waving their arms so they can block them or break the wires. Then all you have is pain compliance. Here's an example of that.
Drop the knife right now. Drop the knife right now. Drop the knife. Drop the knife now. Drop the knife now. Drop the knife. No, no, no. Taser right now. Drop the knife. Drop the knife right now. Taser. Get down. Go, 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 go.
So that guy knew that he was being tased because a British cop had a taser and it's out, and he knows it's coming. You know, taser, taser, taser. Well, they know it's coming. So he waves his arms and he blocks the probe. And now guess what? It's a one-shot deal. You got one, right? Then you got to pop it out and put another one in if you got the time. This is why in the United States, when law enforcement uses tasers, typically if there's more than one officer there, one officer will have the taser, the less lethal option, while the other officer has a lethal option to use in case the taser option fails, because sometimes they do. People think these are panacea. They're not. And the civilian one's really neat. It doesn't weigh hardly anything, but it's not 100%. Nothing that you get for self-defense is going to be 100%. So you've got to understand the pros and cons of each thing. And that's why I'm explaining it to you here sort of in brief. Because if you can't carry a firearm for whatever reason, maybe you're not old enough, maybe you don't have a permit, you're in a state that requires a permit, maybe you're a prohibited person. Check your state law, you may be able to carry a taser, even though you can't carry a firearm. I don't know, I'm not an attorney, I'm just telling you it might be an option for you. At the same time, it might be an option for you to carry a can of pepper spray if you are a prohibited person or not old enough or whatever to have a firearm or don't have a permit. Byrna is the same thing. It might be legal for you to use that if you don't have a firearm. So these are options for folks who either don't want a firearm, they don't want to use deadly force because it's repugnant to them for whatever reason, or they just don't think they could do it, or they don't feel the need, or folks that don't want to go through the expense, or somebody who's got a threat right now and you're in a state like California that's going to make you wait 10 days to get the gun you just bought, and you could get killed in the 10 days. Maybe one of these or a Byrna or at least a can of OC or something on you is a good thing to do. So this is one of the reasons why I'm looking at them for you. Now, so the positive sides are if you get a good deployment, especially these civilian ones, they go for 30 seconds. So you basically zap the guy, set it on the ground, and leave. You got 30 seconds to bounce, and then he's going to come back to life after 30 seconds, but you should be well on your way to being gone by then, and then you're out of there. And then I know Taser, at least one time, I think they still do, if you file a police report, they will replace it, because obviously you're going to lose your Taser because you left it there. Whether Phaser does that or not, I don't know. You could have to look on their website and see. Maybe so. I don't know. And then again, you know, it's a one-shot deal. You only have one set of probes unless you carry an extra one of these around and you have the time to reload. You fire one shot, and then what you've got afterwards is the drive stun, which admittedly is pretty significant, but again, it's pain compliance only. All right, here's a couple more things about these. You can set somebody on fire with this stupid thing if you launch it at a time when they have something on them that's highly flammable. So for example, years ago it was a big deal, it may still be a big deal, I don't know, because a lot of manufacturers of pepper spray used a flammable propellant. The pepper spray itself, the oleocapsaicin, or however they say it, is not flammable, but the propellant was. And so if you OC'd the guy, you sprayed him like crazy and it didn't stop him, and you bust out the taser and tase him, you had a human torch potentially in your hands because you just covered him with a flammable liquid and then you hit him with electricity and poof, he goes on fire. You might be aware of that because if you're at a gas station and you're getting in an argument with a guy and he's pumping gas or you're pumping gas, you might not want to use a taser Here's an example of why.
A man tased by police officers was engulfed by fire. Arkansas State Police have released dashcam video of the October 13th incident. Police say a trooper attempted to pull over a man on a motorcycle who was allegedly driving without a state license plate.
He's on foot. He's cracked out.
A trooper ran after the motorcyclist and pulled out his taser.
He's on foot. He's cracked out. Allen and Silver Street.
Flames erupted after the taser was fired. Authorities say the backpack the motorcyclist was wearing contained about a gallon of gasoline. The man followed the advice to stop, drop, and roll, just as the troopers on the scene came to extinguish the blaze.
So these things are they're a great tool for certain applications. I love them. They're a great tool for certain applications, just like this is, just like a gun is, just like a knife is, right? These are all self-defense tools, but it's incredibly important that you understand the pros and cons of each one. You understand how to make them work. You understand how the particular device that you have works and what its limitations are, and that you get, buy a box of extra probes and extra cartridges. They're not horribly expensive, and practice with it. Even if that means you got to contact Taser and order another battery. You can change the battery out, but you have to order the battery from them. It's not like you can, buy a bunch of NiCad batteries and stick them in there. You gotta, or double A's or something. You have to order the battery from them, and I'm not sure what the procedure is for changing it, but my understanding is it can be changed by the user, the owner. That's my understanding. But it's not rechargeable, so it goes until it doesn't go. Once a little light, as I showed you before, I'll show you again here if you want to look at it. Once a little light is no longer green, it goes to yellow or whatever, then it's time to buy another battery from Taser and replace it. I'm not sure how the phaser model works, but I'll put links to both of those companies in the description. Both of them make excellent products as far as I'm concerned. The only ones I have experience with are Tasers, but my understanding, talking to some folks who have had experience with the phaser, is that it's an excellent product, and so it's on par with the Taser. So you can kind of look and see which one works better for you if you're interested in one or the other. Again, they're expensive. They're like $400, okay? $10, okay? But this is, OC is the same way. It doesn't work on everybody. It doesn't work all the time. It's, it's not 100%. It's light and easy to carry, and so in my everyday carry, because I carry a gun, a knife, and a can of pepper spray, and this is actually Saber. This is a mix of pepper spray and CS mace. Okay, and I carry that. I think it is. I don't have my glasses. I think that's what it is. Anyway, I carry that, and I carry a gun, and I carry a knife because I can. But maybe you can't, and so you want to have options to pick from. So there's some things about the Taser. There's a lot more about these kinds of devices. Don't get confused by Hollywood. Anything that launches probes and causes NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation, is different than the stun gun you would buy at the liquor store or the convenience store or on Amazon or whatever. That is just pain compliance. All it does is hurt. And so a highly motivated, high, mentally ill person who doesn't feel the pain or whatever is not going to be stopped by that. Those people, high, mentally ill, highly motivated, because this kind of device and the phaser like it interrupt the nervous system and cause the muscles to lock up, they do not have the ability to override it, provided that you get a good deployment of the probes. And so that's when it's important to understand at what distance does this work. I knew a guy, just to kind of wrap it up with this, knew a guy who was a security guard, and he got scared by a dude, and he had a civilian version. He had the Taser C2, I think. And these cartridges, I believe, are good for 15 feet. That's it. Well, he was so scared, he fired it before the guy got that close to him. And so they just, they run to the end of the wires and fall to the ground, and it was useless to him. And fortunately, this guy didn't do him any harm. But you want to understand the distances at which the product will actually work. And you can actually fire it, at really, really close if you have to, and it will work, and then it's pain compliance only, because if you do that, if somebody's wrestling with you and you launch it into them, it's not going to give you a 4-inch spread but it's going to hurt like mad. And then once that's there, you can also continue to zap them if that's what you need to do. That is not an uncommon thing when an officer is in a wrestling match with somebody, to launch those probes and get that person off of them that way. In fact, I think we have a video of that as well, and I'll show you that before we end.
Stop, put your hands on your back. Put your hands behind my back. Get against the wall.
Against the wall. I can't breathe.
Stop.
Let's go. Let's go.
Stop.
Everybody stop. Let's go right now.
I need my knees. I understand.
Stop. No. Stop.
Shoot me. Kill me.
Stop. Stop.
Shoot me. I've been shot before. I've been shot before.
Stop. Stop.
You stop. I want you to live.
Get down. Stop. Put your hands behind your back.
Call for help. You need to.
I slept walk and I was shot.
Stop. Put your hands behind your back. 47, tell me.
I'm sorry.
47,
You
tell
handcuff
me.
me, please.
So there you are. There's some information about electronic control devices, whether they are the type that launch probes like the phaser or the taser, or whether it's a stun gun. Those are all electronic control devices. They all fit into the ECD list. And so if you are thinking about buying one, you know a little bit more as a civilian. Obviously, if you want to carry one as a security guard in the state of California, most companies are going to make you take a class that gives you a certification, something that says, I passed this security course on the use of tasers, because then we're going to go over legality and all these other things. If you'd like to do that, it won't be very long. I'm working on it right now. We'll have an exhaustive course online that you can take very inexpensively. I'm planning on pricing it at probably $35 or right around there, 39 maybe, but probably more like $34.95. And it'll be totally online. It'll be video driven. You can take it and knock it out 24/7, 365 from your phone if you want to. How cool is that? Thank you very much for all of your support. I really do appreciate it. Take some classes with us at Practical Defense Systems, and wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.